He's capable of a whole lot given the right kind of picks. We'll see what they're able to do. It's munch time for the Bolts. What time is it? It's 3 o'clock.
All the
guys.
time.
It
It is all
the
Barra
time.
is always munching, dude. He never stops.
He's so skinny, though. How does he do it?
I don't know.
What's his? This is the same thing Katie does. I
Well,
don't
it's
understand.
plain bread. He's not munching on anything
Look,
else.
well,
it's plain bread.
And it's not like it's like multi-grain, like wheat
Yeah,
bread. Like
wheat
he's
bread,
not
yeah.
using like just white bread that's like mostly sugar and like. Even if you get the good brand, is 70 calories a slice. Like I guess, but even still, you have to eat 100. No,
Yeah,
10 of those.
You have to eat a lot.
to
Well,
get a lunch.
And he might at this rate, honestly.
We'll see. I guess if it empowers them. I was thinking about whatever Jake was eating. Curious about that. It was out of a little tub. Either way, it's going to be Kepri Sylvanas bands up at the top for the Bolts. Something that I would imagine only works right now against the Bolts and the Kings. You missed maybe a little bit of that last week when the Kings were able to help turn that around on the Scarabs themselves. The Kings here are going to be banning the Morrigan and Odin. Those feel a lot more typical from what we've started to expect.
I mean, teams have pretty consistently tried to ban out genetics. That's been a pretty popular strategy up against the Camelot Kings this year, and it has not found that much success. So, interested that the Bolts go back to it. The thing that has really kind of changed the tide back towards teams going up against the Kings has been ROM bans up against Netrioid, but how good is ROM now that these nerfs to the bows have come through, the maces have been buffed? I mean, is he still a priority pick? Looks like maybe not. The Bolts let it through. They triple banned genetics, and then the Kings banned Geb, which is where I was expecting a pick to go here. I was thinking, does Jake play Geb with the differences in style that we've seen? And you can't let Big Man Tings get Tiamat. I didn't watch last week, but I heard plenty about it, so that makes sense to me.
You only need to hear once that a Tiamat got a quadra kill and won a game, and that tends to solidify it for you. I was curious about what the King's response was going to be. Tiamat, a very good first pick, but Yamoja's been very kind to Jake in the past as well, still available. And I was wondering if this was going to be something like Yamoja plus Hell, which notably could have been a very, very strong and overpowering composition for the Kings. But it's Rom and Raijin. And Raijin might have a little bit of shakiness, although that 71% win rate in the SBL this phase tends to speak otherwise. The Rom is hands down one of the best performers for Netrioid.
Yeah, by far. It's his best god by a mile. And that's why teams have consistently taken it away from him. This tells me that the Bolts think that build that Rom is going to go, assuming he goes the Ikaval, Odysseus Bow style of build, that build isn't very good right now, because otherwise I don't see a reason to give him this pick. I mean, the difference between Netrioid on Rom, where he looks like the best hunter in the league at times, and on not Rom, where he looks worse than that by a lot, being kind, is night and day. So this tells me some, if I'm a competitor, if I'm looking at the Bolts, I'm a different team, I'm on the Kings, I'm trying to theory craft how we would play against them or something like that, then that would be my takeaway, is that they don't value that build very much. And then we can use that to try and predict what types of gods they do value for Barracuda and ADC. If they don't think that build is good, then they're probably not going other hunters that think that would like that build. They're going to go more ability-centric hunters or things of that nature.
Well, I know so far we've seen like a few Hu Yis if we're looking at it. I think actually Barra's played Jing Wei into this matchup with some marginal success. But I'm going to throw out this Hu Yi, which is, I think, of the last 6 games that he's been locked in, including that last one. He has not won them. Last week he did not win a single game. And so with the one win he does have, I think this phase is from a couple weeks ago now. With Fafnir locked in on the side of the Kings alongside the Raijin and the Rom, this feels like something that makes a lot of sense for the way they tend to play, which is very strictly, if Twig right now is experimenting in the jungle and trying to kind of get some of these assassins that are more quote-unquote meta under his feet, put the carry hands for Tings, give them over to Netrioid, like allow the rest of the team to kind of carry it up, so despite whatever might happen, whether Twig has a great game or not, you still have some win conditions.
Exactly, and I think that, if you showed me this Kings draft, I'd be like, all right, great, why are you showing this Kings draft from 2 weeks ago? Because this is exactly the same things that they were picking then. And the bans outside of this Geb, very, very similar as well. So not a lot of adjustment right now from the Camelot Kings, but I don't really mind that in game 1 of a set like this where you aren't really sure of the meta. Let's just go to things that we know have worked for us in the past, and then we can adjust from there afterwards. But I do think that this is – I'm surprised at how little variation we're seeing right now from mostly the Kings. The Nike pick is a little bit different there for the Bolts.
Also feels like a very similar just color palette on that side of the screen, which admittedly, like, I see a lot of purple themed throughout of it, which makes sense. They're the Kings, look at their colors. So it ultimately goes that way. Raven, that gets locked in right there. Something we saw Twig play last week with some marginal success, and we've been seeing a little bit more of over the last couple of weeks as well. But admittedly, before this, I mean, I'm thinking Cuvo, Scary D really were the only two that were highly playing him. And I can't remember if it was an SCC. It must have been SCC yesterday where we saw him even thrown into the solo lane.
Yeah, I think Raven is okay. He's just an assassin that survives really well. He uses maces. You know, he can go full offense. It doesn't feel too bad. I think that overall, Raven is never, you know, I only want Raven in situations where I'm like, man, I really need multiple forms of CC immunity in order to survive as an assassin on my dive. I don't really see that for what the Bolts have, but you're not going to hear me complaining about Raven very often.
Matchup and looking at it, the RTO, which has been 100% pick ban so far here in the SPL, does sneak its way through on this draft, and it ends up putting a Nike in the jungle, Mifflin, something we don't see too often anymore. Usually, she has been more accustomed to that solo lane.
Yeah, I'm actually a pretty big fan of Nike inside the jungle. Generally, though, when I see a lot of fruition from this pick, it is generally the Mannequin Scepter into the Hidden Blade Heartseeker kind of tactical nuke style. And Lazarus still certainly can go for a very high damage output build, but with Bumbas, won't have that exact blink in, just press ult, and one-shot potential, or at least great backline disruption potential that he could have had with that build, something that we've seen Sanford Soccer go for a lot in the past. But Nike still does have great jungle clear, good poke inside the lane, decent CC. The knock-up into slows feels very good. I don't share the same concerns Aggro did on the desk.
Segment where when it comes down to these two teams, it's all going to be, well, maybe not all, but a lot of it is going to come down to how do these junglers really perform up in this new metas. Both these junglers have kind of been struggling in it. Captain Twig kind of highlighted at the end of his little matchup last week against the Titans that he kind of got carried a little bit by the rest of his team. But, I mean, when you have big man teams popping off on a TMI, it's no surprise you'd be kind of comfortable sitting in the backpack. Lasbra trying to get some big poke on Variety, pushes him to near death, but Variety able to slip out by the nature of that tier 1 tower being there as a deterrent factor. Haddix will try and zone Captain Twig away from this blue buff steal that's going on. He'll be successful in maintaining that one for his team, so no blue buff for the Bolts.
That's huge for Twig, who is already benefiting from an XP advantage on Lazra. Comes into that blue buff defense at level 4, and Lazra sitting at level 3. And Twig, very healthy at this point, great survivability. Thanks to that overhead kick, can keep up this aggression and try and slow down this jungle clear, buy some time for Variety to rotate back in.
Captain Twig may have walked a little too far forward. He'll meet the Nanu in the jungle, and he'll eat that Minotaur minion, take a little bit of extra poke. Especially when these Tiamat builds have been kind of leaning more towards cooldown reduction over anything. 30-40%, we'll hold that. Nitroid, and, well, no real danger. He was able to just walk right out of those waves. Awesome Jake just uses the ultimate and doesn't get a whole lot from it. But these mid lane Tiamats have been seeing a little bit more cooldown, usually 30 or 40%. So yeah, if you can overhead kick one stun, well, don't worry, about 6 seconds later it'll be another one. Big man Tings has to go on the Tycho drums out of range from the damage of Ben and uses those drums to push Lasbra back. He's low, but Lasbra is still on the hunt. Big man is not going to be safe under this tier 2 tower. You better bet that Lasbra's going to dive right in. The barrier formation gets the kill, but the minions and Netroid clean him up right after.
Man, Jake was so close by. Had Lasbra given him just a little bit more space, could have backed up for the heal. Haddix, though, surrounded by 3, trying to defend blue.
He's got Barracuda coming in with the ultimate. Our root comes out. Variety low on mana. He's got to run. It's an ult away from Captain Twig, and Genetics leap out. But the continued engagement from the Bolts may not be able to catch them out in time. Variety gets a little bit of his mana back, but Haddix has caught him out. The root comes through. It's successful in locking him in. But the beads from Variety make sure that he can leap out of that cripple field.
Losing out of the defensive relic does not feel good. Good utilization of the global ultimate from Barracuda to rejoin his team on the right-hand side. Try and swing that fight back in favor.
Barrier comes out, but only to make sure that Tings and Twig do not continue any further forward. So mid camps go to the Kings. This 1,000 gold lead may go even further.
Jeez.
Barracuda gets caught, has to use the dash. Netroid goes in, and the Riptide may have just slowed down Netroid enough. Jake and Barra both managed to make it out.
Man, if that Riptide were just a little bit off the mark, 2, 3 more auto attacks from Netroid could have set him up for a position where Astral Barrage might have been able to pick up a kill onto Barracuda, or at least able to strip that ultimate and force him to use it for the damage immunity. But instead, the Camelot Kings take the small win with poke, but it is exactly that, just a small win.
Lasbro with the ultimate, looking for a couple of them. Twig is in danger. He'll get hit with last hit of the Rend and be forced to walk away. Haddox will get a stun against Variety, but not much more beyond there. As the Raiju lands on top of Haddox's head, he'll immediately use that dash to get away. A little fight over the Scorpion, and at the end of the day, it does go the King's way.
Man, I'm getting whiplash trying to follow all these fights all over the map. Camelot Kings and Olympus Bolts aiming for each other's necks as Netroid takes a lot of damage.
Netroid is trying for a boxing match, and it's Awesome Jake who throws out the Moonblast. Will
Woo!
catch it, but he needs one more auto to fall down. Not going to be it this time. Barracuda, he may be looking for blood, goes up,
No
crashes
shots.
down immediately, gets the ult out of Netroid. Going to need all 3 snipes and even more to save his life. Barracuda will toss down the crystal, but the basic is what will end the day. Awesome Jake there for the assist, and Genetics has to sit by as his Hunter falls.
The Bolts are allowed to make that play because of the ruckus happening inside the jungle. Ven and Lasbra acting as goaltender, keeping Twigs and Ting at bay.
Big man Ting's going up with the ultimate. Tycho drums, Venenu walks in aggressively. The last one fears them away, and Genetics is the one in danger. As the consume hits, Lasbra leaps in, the barrier for damage, and a Moonblast just off the mark. Genetics able to get over the wall and save the life of his mid and jungle.
Not before big man Ting takes a little bit more damage just on his rotation back. Doing a great job just farming the map.
And right now, a lot of it is in Variety and Captain Twig. Both of them have a little over a level each in favor. And Variety may want even more. He'll pull back. Haddox is a double stun out of the bear and a nice little heal to make sure that Haddox has a little bit more health. He'll dash in and immediately cancel his own dash. Gets rooted out, but Lasbra's back. Drops the ultimate. Captain Twig now might be the one in danger. He leaps away, but the root comes out from Haddox and will be enough to take him down. Variety leaps in looking for Lasbra, but he makes it back under the tower. The Bolts come out with one.
It's so hard to shut down an Artio inside the lane. The amount of self-sustain is just so hard to deal with. Heals up throughout the entirety of the burst. Might have seen a heavier commit from Awesome Jake onto Netroid, but instead Barracuda says, hey man, let's play a little bit further back here. No reason to rush it. If we lose out on this fight, could very easily lose out on a Gold Fury, but the Camelot Kings, they don't want to win the fight first. They're already grouped up.
Variety pushing some of them back so his team can start up the Gold Fury, but Jake is here, Rivera right behind him, and now that Haddox is rotated over, they've got some of their extra front line, but Jake is getting chunked out by this Raijin. So much damage coming from this mid laner. That Soul Reaver online, and you can already see the damage he's able to put out with it. Even Lasbra starting to get chunked a little bit by Variety on the Cerberus.
Yeah, Variety is a menace at this point. His damage output is so nice. His ability to burn away those beads means that the Olympus Bolts have to respect the position that he generates. But now, the Bolts given a small opportunity to pull the Gold Fury themselves.
Gold Fury down to half. Variety and Genetics pushing in. Netroid right behind, but the Gold Fury's not falling down very quick. Instead, it's the fight after that they're losing. Haddox,
Rip.
He gets chunked down. The River's Rebuke too late. Variety picks up one with the ult and throws Jake back into their clutches, but Lasbra is hunting for Variety. He'll find one and a leap in. Venenu will get another one. Awesome Jake credit to Barracuda pumping out autos, but he's out of mana, and Twig will dive right on top of him and take him down.
Lasbra trying to keep up the fight. Rend is good, but Ven needs a little bit more help than that. Has to run away against the dragon form of Genetics.
Transformation in, and that will be a good confirmation. A full deicide for the Camelot Kings, and finally getting their toes in the water on the kill department. Now up 6-5, and a Gold Fury as their prize after the fight.
Haddox just playing a little bit too far forward, and the Olympus Bolts playing with a little bit too much confidence, pulling that Gold Fury themselves.
Even the Phantom Veil fully upgraded, still up for Captain Twig. They can take another fight if they want to. The only relics up on the side of the Bolts is going to be that Blink, and it will be that Bracer, and Jake may need more than just those to get him out. Netroid and the Tycho drums take down Awesome Jake. Another kill for the Kings, and now they're pushing up this mid lane, maybe trying to take this tier 1 tower.
Yeah, I can't imagine there's going to be much of a force from the Bolts to try and slow this one down. It's just the Tiamat in range, and, well, Ven's showing us that he's not interested in putting up a defense here. Tier 1's mid tower is going to fall down, but where the Camelot Kings headed afterward, maybe the tier 2, Variety's deep.
Maybe just Lasbra. He's down to half health just from Variety alone. Tier 2 in danger.
There's
Barracuda ults in and immediately dashes right back out because Haddox gets chunked out. That Sunder slamming away his health bar, reducing those protections, and Genetics up in the dragon form. Might be looking just to continue this surge up the mid lane. Tier 2 in danger as Netroid and Ting swing away at it with their basics.
Man, who can stop Variety in these fights? Feels like he's just walking in and saying, hey man, you're not going to get to my back line, tell you what, and if you try, maybe I just kill you all on my own. This Cerberus is a menace right now, generating infinite space.
For them to have taken it, but they sit around just a little bit too long, and the Camelot Kings can now take complete control on this side. Lasbra, he'll spot out a ward and make sure and de-ward that. Now it's Captain Twig versus Barracuda, the 1v1. Barracuda, he gets the Aussie proc now. It's all just coming down to the basic damage, and it's Captain Twig who has to run away. Barra closing the gap, needs one more auto, but Jake is going to grab it, and Netrioid with the snipes finds him. Only needs a couple to take him down.
Twig may not have gotten the kill on his own, but he at least sets up for Netrioid to find the return onto Barracuda, and it makes sense to me that Twig doesn't try to utilize that ultimate to finish off that kill. Barracuda had the Aegis available, no shot.
Haddix in the middle of 4. Big Man tings up on the Tycho drums, pulls him right back to his doom. A kill for the mid laner, and a bit of CC to try and help Netrioid, but it's not enough. Venenu picks him up with the kill. Genetics in the transformation, looking for a target, will stun Venenu out, and the damage from Raiju, most of it immune. Now Venenu living through, but for how much longer? The answer, not very much.
Look, man, that is still a hallmark look at how strong Tiamat is. She's surrounded by 3 members of the Camelot Kings, playing at a deficit as well, and still survives for an incredibly long time, but penetration inside of his. So Barracuda gonna have an advantage on shredding these neutral objectives and shredding carries alike.
He's going to throw out the crystal and get the combo for some extra attack speed, and doesn't seem there's too much answer on this Pyromancer just yet, except for Twig. He'll dive right in and he'll steal it away. Another objective goes the way of the Kings, but this time off one big steal. Variety looking for more, finds Barracuda and finds his beads. Jake stuck, uses the Riptide to get himself out. The stun stopped him for a moment, but he'll be able to get away with his life. But the Camelot Kings don't look like they're ready to give up. Variety goes right back in, stun misses, and Haddix stuck against the wall, surrounded by 3. How much longer can the bear live in the middle of everybody? And the Kings once more say not too long.
Here's the thing about a rock in a hard place. That's exactly where Haddix finds himself there, surrounded on all sides, a siege on all fronts, and now the Fire Giant being looked at. 22 minutes into this one, the Camelot Kings pull it out, and where are the bolts? Nowhere in range to defend.
Jake cannot even walk forward. The ward to make sure that he's spotted out. It's going to be a Fire Giant for the Kings. 11-7 on the kills. 7,000 gold in their favor, and will only be ever climbing with 3 more towers for them to take off the map, and all the pressure in the world to continue these pushes.
Oni Fury is being looked at by the Olympus Bolts, at least able to try and take out a consolation prize here, but that's going to be a slow siege for them. And meanwhile, what are the Kings doing? They're pushing down that tier 2 on right. If maybe Twig can stop some backs here, could be a Phoenix Siege attempt, but the Camelot Kings are not going to leave it up to chance. Yet again, though, Captain Twig does not have beads, so inside the 1v1, any CC that comes his way should stick itself home. Looks like Twig might be looking for a Magi's Blessing, but at this pace, might not even get the opportunity to finish it.
Minute left on the Fire Giant power play. They sent 3 to this left side to look at the Phoenix, and 4 from the Bolts to defend it. Captain Twig by himself against Lasbra. Variety rotates in, stun off the mark by Ven, and blink gets interrupted there, so Variety's ultimate doesn't find anybody, and that may be just enough for the Bolts to hold the Kings back.
Yeah, Stygian Torment is such a massive tool lost there. It looked like Variety got clipped by an Archer minion or something like that and gets his blink canceled out immediately, but still able to walk his way in there and create space the old-fashioned way.
Stun against Haddix. The Riptide comes through just for an extra little bit of defense. Variety jumps out. The Bird taking a decent chunk of damage, but not quite enough to fall down just yet. Variety, he'll walk back with the rest of the team. Big Man Tings will clear out the minions, and maybe the Kings can walk forward and try and get a little bit more. Awesome Jake takes about half of his health, but again, Variety leaping away. Haddix chunked down. The Tycho drums trying to pull the bear right back in, but the ults are separated. The team fight gets separated. Captain Twig gets chunked out. He has to walk back, and Lasbra picks him up on the retreat. Netrioid low. This could be a big hit for Venenu, who gets Netrioid, and Big Man Tings doesn't have enough mitigation, not enough healing in the world to save his life. Barracuda gets 1. Genetics and Variety, the front line, the other one's left, but a huge Stygian Torment from Variety may have just saved at least one of their lives, or maybe saved them both.
Too little too late. The Olympus Bolts now sieging forward, and Variety, you are locked down. Good luck running away from an RDO.
Beads get him out of one cripple field, but he's right back in another. Stun holds him in place. Genetics is just trying to run and separate the fight, but Variety is fighting right back at them. Leaps on top of Ven. The spin comes out from the mid laner, and then this 3v1, and Lasbra joining back in, makes it a 5v1, and finally will take down the solo laner.
The fact that Variety even put the threat of killing Venenu into my heart right there, I felt the fear for the Olympus Bolts, but a phenomenal base defense.
Not ultimate cast, because you probably have it on Instacast for something like that. And he unfortunately loses out on the early part of that engagement, still holds him off for a while, but Fire Giant is the target for the Bolts, or maybe it's just a fight. Variety back up and can start running back towards the rest of the fight. Jake will push them away with the Riptide, but the Fire Giant hasn't been fully started up just yet. A Bracer dropped down in the back just to give a little bit of extra power over towards this team. A fully upgraded Bracer, so they've also got that to act as a sentry ward if need be. Fire Giant went the way of the Kings, and the Bolts responded by taking an Oni Fury. Now it's a Primal Fury that has spawned in, which would be a nice target for either team to have, but the biggest target on the map, the Fire Giant, a minute away from that enhanced state, and the Camelot Kings are probably more than happy with delaying this just a little bit. But how much longer will they delay? An ultimate from Variety finds two, gets a bead from Haddix. River's Rebuke comes through. Lasbra diving in the backline finds Netrua and might be able to force the ultimate out of him.
Twig?
Big Man Tings has to go away, and Twig is caught in the middle of three. Not going to make it out. Venenu picks him up with the Consume. The snipes from Netrua just off the mark, and it's now a 5v4, and it could turn in favor even more for the Bolts if Variety or Genex get caught out. A quick leap from the Dragon gets Genex out of danger, but the rest of the Bolts surge forward.
Ven, so healthy at this point, can do just about no wrong. That leap's going to be coming up very shortly if they'd elect to re-engage this one, but Captain Twig diving in with the ultimate there is a huge turning point inside of this fight. Maybe thought the rest of his team was right behind him, but great zoning from the front line of the Olympus Bolts keeps the Kings at bay, and Ven is doing it all on his own. He doesn't need a DPS the Fire Giant instead, just making sure no one for the Kings is comfortable enough to step up.
Who cares about hitting the Fire Giant when you can hit the enemy team and let the rest of your team take a Fire Giant? And 3 seconds in, it's an enhanced Fire Giant for the Olympus Bolts, and this game has completely turned back around. What was a near 8,000 to 10,000 gold lead that the Kings had just earlier on has dwindled down to barely even over a 2,000 lead with another 1,500 gold swing out. We are looking at a dead even game.
Camelot Kings very deep on the Olympus Bolts side of the map, trying to set up an ambush here. Whoever is unfortunate enough from the Bolts to walk into this one, I don't care if it's Jake or it's Lazar, any of the tanks on the Bolts might just get shredded down.
It's a matter of, are there any wards that could spot them? I think they are standing on a blue ward right there, so I'm pretty sure every person on the Bolts sees what they're doing. That's why you don't see anybody walking to that left side of the map. Big Man and Variety, though, and they might spot Haddix here. Haddix walks forward. It's an ultimate from Variety. Will pick up the pair, but the pair is doing just fine. The wall makes sure to hold Haddix back in place, and Jake is looping around the back, finds a double stun. Variety gets taken down. Venenu with the credit of the kill. The River's Rebuke to zone off the rest of the team, and Lasbra finds Netroid all by himself. Big Man Tings might need more than just damage to save his life. He'll be stunned up. Force the Tycho drum, but already in the dirt. Barracuda puts him down.
Genetic's going to try his best to clear out some waves, but I got to say it again, no backdoor protection means no problem for the Olympus Bolt. 3 deads for 35 seconds. This could very well be the match.
Left Phoenix goes down. Lasbra zoning Captain Twig away, gets the ultimate out of him, and the Olympus Bolts can surge into the throne room. Captain Twig able to pick up one. The Cyclone comes through, might not be able to find Captain Twig, but the Bolts aren't concerned about Twig. They're concerned about the Titan, down to half health. It's Genex and Twig to try and put up a defense, but no ult and not enough damage. The Camelot Kings fall in game number 1. Bolts able to come back.
Big deal, but then just too deep from Captain Twig, which was kind of a theme throughout this game. I thought Twig had a couple of pretty rough overextensions on this Robin. A tough game for the Kings because they did a lot of things well. I think the Bolts, at the end of the day, their backline was just too safe in this game. That Barracuda and Venenu both were able to get away with just too much in order for the Kings to win this game. Too many times, Barra and Ven were able to put out all the damage. I mean, this kill by Barra, absolutely nasty, forces Twig back and still able to pick him up. This was a huge play, obviously, but overall I think that how can you look at anything but the player damage that Venenu did on this Tiamat and be like, yeah, we can handle that? Not really. It was just too much.
Yeah, I think the Tiamat, again, something that we've seen being let through these top bans a little more recently and more as time has gone on. Again, last week had a very, very overwhelming amount of games compared to what we're used to, and yet still finding this much success in the right hands. Some teams have learned to deal with her, and some players are just too difficult to deal with. 4, 2, and 7 there for Vin. Again, the slash lines aren't necessarily beautiful on either side. It wasn't this stellar game where one person pops off and carries everything, although being able to affect, 11 of your team's total kills is very big. 12 there affected by Jake. It just feels like the entire team was able to put out a lot, but 29,000 damage speaks pretty well to Vin's presence, 10k more than Ting's.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's just so much damage that he's able to put out.
Back and forth, but then a little bit of a slip up gives the Bolts exactly the window of opportunity they need. They're going to swap over here as the Kings to first pick. And last time you have to remember, they banned out Morgan, they banned out Odin, they banned out Geb, and their top two were Rom, Raijin in the second pick slot. That means they will have to limit a little bit, but if Tiamat makes it through, especially after the performance we saw last week, I can't imagine Ting's shying away from it.
No, I don't think so. I mean, I think the Bolts are pretty likely to ban Tiamat. They triple banned Genetics, who still was an impact on the Fafnir as expected. I mean, he continues to get triple and quadruple banned out and still manages to find some pretty strong picks. So I think the Bolts can probably let one of those Guardians through, though remember it was the Kings who had to ban the Geb because they were on second pick side. So now maybe you don't have room to ban Sylvanas alongside, or I forget the third Guardian that they banned.
Terra.
Terra, that's right. Yeah, I don't know if you can ban all of those. You might have to go Tiamat, Geb as your bans, but I still don't think that's the end of the world. I think that, you know, the Sylvanas, the Terra, those are beatable picks, even for a player as skilled as Genetics.
And we've seen it today. I mean, having some of these Terras not necessarily perform the way that you expect. We've seen it last week as well. And you can see it is a very popular ban up against the Kings, though. 62% tied up there with the Rom and the Khepri. Although Khepri, I anticipate after today maybe starting to pull ahead of some of these others. It has been a huge thorn in their side. Also worth noting that despite Hell being very prominent, I think, for both of these teams, and I believe was one of the most big indicators of their last matchup in Phase 2, it has not quite shown its face just yet, despite being available last time around. With Tiamat off the board, Raijin's available, but you're going to have to start looking if, you know, the Bolts maybe for different mid laners. If you're the Kings, maybe that's a swing solo laner that you'll be able to pick up later.
Yeah, I think from the Kings here, I think RDO is probably the ban that I'm feeling the best about from this position. It's a matter of whether or not they want to first pick Geb. If they're not willing to first pick Geb, then they should probably ban it. Umoja's a very good ban as well. I'm happy with that for the Kings for sure. Jake was obviously fantastic on it. Bolts go Tiamat, Geb, kind of as expected from that second pick slot. And now it's an interesting proposal for the Kings. Do they want in this situation historically they've top picked Rom, but you know that the Bolts are scared of a couple of your picks. What world are we in that Sylvanas is top pick, by the way? I can't believe that's already happened. But it clearly is what the Kings want. It guarantees you dual lane pressure. It brings good team fight presence and has some sustain. And now the Bolts have a couple of options. Do they want to try and take the Raijin away from Big Man Tings? Do they want to take the Rom away from Netrioid? Or do they want to just try and shore up the jungle? I mean, they prioritized Nike pretty heavily last time around. They could go back to that, leave it as a flex pick. RDO is still open. You've got some options here for the Bolts.
Now, a lot, like you said, available for these back two, especially with Sylvanas. So, like you said, a very bizarre first pick. He's played 4 games. He's won 3 of those here in Phase 2. Phase 3. And so, good news is he's been successful, but slightly more successful, same amount of games, all of them won, is Nike alongside the Raijin. 2 things that, as of right now, seem pretty much like they're going to slot in very well. The Bolts looked good with the Nike, although there were definitely some moments early on where you were feeling the lack of that assassin presence from the jungle. But Raijin has just been sitting up at the top pretty much right behind Tiamat as that mage laner, mid laner.
I mean, you just can't go wrong. He does everything well, so that doesn't surprise me. And this is what the Kings did in Game 1 as well. They've picked their duo lane and their mid laner early. They seem to really prioritize getting Tings' God in the top 3. Don't want to see him get more bans tossed his way and kind of let Variety get closer to a counter pick, though in first pick, of course, you won't get the final selection. And this Serket I like a lot for the Bolts as well, because now you've got 2 picks in Nike and Serket. You don't really know where they're going. It can be Serket support, it could be Serket jungle, it could be Nike jungle, it could be Nike solo. I hope we won't see Nike support, though we have seen it in the past. So this makes the bans a lot more difficult for the Kings. You know, I think that in their position, I'd probably just take out some stuff that I think that we could struggle against, in particular probably in the jungle role, but I think the chances are very good that Lasber has his jungler between the Nike and the Serket, so maybe that isn't the direction the bans should go. Instead, you should try and focus out some of these frontliners.
I like it. Even though they've been able to handle it in the past, the RDO definitely caused a lot of trouble. I think Mifflin had called it out at one point, where it was, or maybe it was JMac, one of the two, had jumped, you left one cripple field, leaped forward, and all of a sudden you're just right there in another. You had nothing to do. You couldn't escape the RDO in that last engagement, or one of the last few engagements. And so trying to limit that solo lane presence. Cerberus was something that has been big just regardless in the last few weeks, but Sobek was another big pick we had mentioned in the pre-game segment earlier that both Haddix and Variety have played, and now all of those are off the table, so somebody's going to have to change something up.
Yeah, this is interesting now because what do the Bolts want to do? They have to make a choice now on where one of these two characters is going. You can still leave it as a flex option for either Haddix or for Jake, but you can't leave both open. You got to take a frontliner here. So the question is, which one? I think it's obviously better to take Jake's pick in this spot if this Serket isn't for him.
Yeah.
Because then you let Haddix get the solo lane counter matchup, which is obviously something that they all want the vast majority of the time. So I'm probably looking for something to either guarantee that this is going to be for Jake or take Lazarus' pick in this spot. Or excuse me, Barra. I was like, where there? I know I was missing one. Yeah, Barra is the obvious one to go for. I've done this for a long time, and I'm good at my job, as you can tell by all the things that I just said.
Well, hey, they do opt in to pick up Barras because it's the safe bet, and it gets them exactly what they want, and they still get that counter matchup. Plus, and maybe to highlight it even harder, the ambiguity still stands. You don't know what jungle matchup or solo lane matchup you have to deal with here. Hunbats as well as King Arthur hovered. Hunbats locked in. This is a great pick for Twig. It has just been something that has treated him very kindly in the past, and I believe treated him very kindly recently.
Iconic pick for a jungler who's been around for a long time, and it was something that the Bolts banned game one, so you know that they respect it, and now you get it for yourself. And the Kings this time around, I think, have a draft that is a little bit more cohesive, that they really want you to group up. They want to AoE you down. You've got Merlin, you've got Sylvanas, you've got Hunbats. These are characters that really punish you for being too grouped up. That being said, I don't think the Bolts are a composition that is going to group a whole lot. They've got a ton of mobility on their team. Between the Nike, Raijin, Serket, Hachiban, those are 4 pretty mobile selections for their classes. And so if I'm the Bolts, I'm talking about making sure that we're spreading out, not getting grouped up, not being punished by these oppositions, and making sure that we're able to keep our distance from one another. You know, make sure the Serket's over here with the Nike back there. You know, you got to really be wary of how well you're spreading out these team fights.
Yeah, I think people saying Artio is the magical King Arthur just kind of reminded people like, oh yeah, King Arthur also like exists. King Arthur's the physical King Arthur. Maybe we just start playing that one again. And sure enough, he is a little bit weaker than he once was. Has seen some nerfs throughout the year. Some itemization changes have hurt him as the year has gone on as well, which is why we're starting to see him more so as a niche pick nowadays, but he still has great bully potential, phenomenal CC, single target inside of the late game, decent survivability as well. So it's not too surprising to see Variety try and pick this one up here in a Game 2 situation as Jake pulled in.
Jake yanked in. He'll take a bit of damage. Netro trying to close the gap,
shot,
but doesn't have enough damage from the basics. He'll be able to walk away. And interesting to note, Awesome Jake does not have any purification beads. Went with a very aggressive blink as a first relic. So if he gets pulled again like that, at even lower health, could spell his doom. Big man Tings eats the entirety of that thousand cuts, and well, he'll throw a nice little laugh back at Lasbro.
That engagement can actually just use his own ultimate, Serket's ultimate, to CC immune the majority of Fear No Evil, toss him away, and just walk out immediately afterwards. So we'll see if that comes to fruition as time goes on, or whether or not Twig just says, maybe I don't go to this guy.
Lasbro going aggressive in solo. Variety has to spin away as fast as he can with the Beyblade, but he's not going to get far enough. Lasbro chases him out with the Soul Lantern. They put the bolts on the board first.
Of Lasbro, but the same cannot be said of Variety, who is sitting at level 4, up against Haddix's 5. So all that pressure potential we were talking about from the King Arthur, its poke potential and bully potential inside of the lane has largely been missed out on now, as Haddix actually just has more HP bars than everyone else in the lobby.
Yeah, that shield from the Sentinel of Zeus, so potent.
There it is.
He'll use it here to try and box against Variety, and that's because Lasbro has shown up one more time. A good double stun from Variety will save him for only a short while. Lasbro still had that trickster spirit, and will use it to pick up a second kill for himself and for the team.
That's got to be a major tilter for Variety now. I mean, you had some fight in potential as Jake gets pulled through the wall, but Serket, being one of the more mobile assassins, is able to work her way out of there, but it's so much harder for him to get involved. Sure, beads are down on a couple of targets, or maybe some CC immunity is lost out. Haddix still no ultimate available, but Twig's got to just walk in the old-fashioned way. Standard monkey stuff, have to work on his feet. and that's just so much harder to do. So instead, Greater Scorpion.
Jake goes in, gets one with the taunt, and picks up Captain Twig with the ultimate. That's going to get the beads from the Hun Bats. A leap in from Haddix, and an ultimate slows him down, shoves him up against the wall, but he gets the beads from Haddix. Continued chase. Lasbra rooted in place by Genetics, and a teleport in. No further fight here from the Bolts, just now trying to bail out their jungler.
Yeah, and they, I mean, they didn't need much bailing out, did they? It is, all right, we're done accosting you inside your own jungle, so we're going to go ahead and head over and pull the Greater Scorpion ourselves. Haddix doing a great job zoning off.
The basics, it's just literally standing next to him. He gets some free poke with that Mystical Mail. Jake looked at that Scorpion, but then the rest of the Kings showed up, and he had to make his way out. Luckily for him, he is a Circuit set ambush, a great tool for getting him out of danger, able to leap right over that wall. Lasbra is hunting on this left side, pull just off the mark, and a dash in against Netroid, forces the ultimate against Genetics. Immediately, Paladin comes out, but beads and ults are available. That'll be an ult from Netroid and a bead from Genetics, and Netroid's response is much better, able to take down Lasbra as soon as he lands off the Paladin.
But maybe Genetics could get caught out here. Van around the corner has Ratatouille.
No beads, no ult for Genetics. He's a sitting tree in the midst of this empty, barren wasteland. Venenu picks him up and puts a kill on the board. And look at this, a Ratatouille start for both of these mid laners. I just looked down and noticed they completely have forgone this Chronos Pendant. We just want that straight damage. The Kings have been able to maintain an even state in the experience.
Yeah, Big Man Tings as well has a 1-level lead over Ven. Inside of mid, ADC is even, but support Genetics has a 1-level lead over Awesome Jake. The Camelot Kings are doing their best to slow down the pace of this game and just farm up on the map. Netroid taking a little bit of a 1v1 here, but maybe taking a little bit too much damage as well. Surprised to see Jake not come in a little bit more to that.
Genetics is just getting shredded by this
Good
dodge.
heal.
The Fear No Evil from Captain Twig will take down one. Netroid credit for the kill, and the snipes won't be necessary for the kill. Captain Twig gets him with the basic, and the chase continues until Jake jumps away. That'll be a 2-pick there for the Kings.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised to see him just trying to clear out some of this neutral farm, like maybe a mid-wave, and then head back to base and try and clear out the speed. But as I say that, proves me wrong instantly. Clears the speed and actually continues out towards the lane. I mean, that is such a huge power spike to be able to pick up that secondary relic that I'm surprised that he's kind of waiting on this purchase for now, but all this farm on the map, all these back harpies, got to clear those out first.
Twig will teleport into the Sacred Monkey. Jake is the one who might be out there on the run. Variety's been baiting the rest of the Bolts over by the Fire Giant that spawned in. Variety gets a nice stun against Haddix. The Fire Giant forces the Sentinel of Zeus, and a 2-man ultimate from Captain Twig pushes them away from where he was probably intending. A teleport in from Lasbra, and an instant cancel to the Paladin as Venenu picks up one, but now Venenu's surrounded by 2. Genetics and Netroid closing that gap, and Variety finding Lasbra. Venenu now stuck in the middle of 4 and chopped right down.
Well, that's why Captain Twig decided to stay out. He knew that he'd be able to turn around that fight. Had he landed the Sacred Monkey off of the Fear No Evil, probably goes even further in their favor, but sticks around a little bit too long, takes a lot of damage, and Ven able to turn one back around. But the Camelot Kings, 2-for-1 trade.
Physical defense, and will now pick up his first magic defense. I mean, look what they're going against. They're going against 4 physicals and then a single Raijin. Not saying you shouldn't pay attention to magical defense, but it is a Raijin, so you probably want to have a little bit in your build.
Yeah, if you don't put the proper amount of respect on the Ven, you're just losing out in these fights as Jake finds Genetics close to his own tower, but
so tanky.
Yeah, he is super tanky at this point. Ven needs a little bit more penetration inside the build, a little bit more passive once he gets that Soul Reaver available. And then maybe you can look at Genetics.
Right, he's still looking at this 2v1 against Haddix and Lasbra, just trying to turn them from the blue buff, but an ultimate from Captain Twig pushes Jake right back to the rest of the Kings. It's a quick pick on the support, and maybe more. Barracuda has to use the dash to get away, that EI Jutsu used for safety, and now the Kings can set their sights towards the Gold Fury.
They can, but Barracuda still has a good deal of damage output, has the kin size, moving into the Titan's Bane as well. He will shred given the opportunity, but the only thing being shredded right now is the Fury itself. Camelot Kings credit for this one, despite the efforts of Barracuda to try and scare him off.
Now 4,000 gold lead for the Kings, 6-4 in the kill, so 1 kill is all the Kings need to open up the ways to go for these objectives. They take down 1, but on this right-hand side, it's been Variety and Haddix standing by each other for majority of these last couple of Crusher, so it's yellow numbers on yellow numbers on yellow numbers. As soon as that ability comes through, 1,000 cuts, expect to see a ton of numbers, and the Pyromancer saw a lot of numbers, but they weren't fun for him. him. He'll fall down quickly. 18 minutes in, the Camelot Kings pick up another objective.
Yeah, luckily for the Pyromancer, that was a painless death. We'll see if Arati is afforded that same luxury surrounded by 3.
Goes up in the ultimate, but he finds Lazarus, slams him right back down, and Venenu will take him out with the tight go drums. Netroid on the run, but Barracuda catches him out, and Jake slammed against the wall by the ultimate from Captain Twig. Powwow picks him up, and that's 3 down now for the Camelot Kings. Genetics separates himself from the mid laner. He'll get slowed down and burned down. Venenu grabs 1, and it's only Tings left alive.
People forget after that dominant stint from the Olympus Bolts where they were just playing proactively on the map every game that this is a counter-punch team. Anytime the Camelot Kings step out of line, you better believe every single one of the Olympus Bolts is going to be there to punish them for it. Now, yet again, one mistake might net them the Fire Giant.
Big man Tings is being zoned out by Haddix. Even Venenu walks over just to make sure everything's good, but Fire Giant takes Bear, almost takes Lasper too. He was living on less than 100 health after that knock-up. The Olympus Bolts at the end of the day, they get the Fire Giant, but man, losing Barracuda, that's gotta hurt.
It's being annoying up against big man Tings, kind of like how the Camelot Kings are playing annoying in the right-hand side of the map. A little bit of a base race here. It's just Haddix on the defense, so if nobody else from the Bolts back, this could be a Phoenix Siege, and just by posturing like that, able to generate enough threat to send Ven back to base, but Barracuda's all you need on the left-hand side.
Barracuda and on some Jake on the left side, but it's Haddix versus 3, and with Tings rotating in, it makes it a 4th, but now that Venenu is here, we've got a little bit of damage support, and Fear No Evil comes out, but it doesn't do quite enough to Haddix. Finally, he'll fall down. Nitroid credited to the kill, and everybody on the Bolts except for Barra has gone back to base. It's Barracuda who's now going to be doing the defense pushes. He'll be taking out that left side tier 2. And now Awesome Jake gets the ult against Variety. Venenu in trouble. The snipes from Netroid. Not going to get the second one. Needs the third one. Will find it. Captain Twig and Netroid team up to take him down. Lasbra up on the powwow. Doesn't pull anybody, and he may be the one in danger trying to turn it back to Captain Twig. He manages to get one, but now it's just Jake here on the defense.
And Jake is going to run away. There's no way he takes this fight. We'll see whether or not Barracuda can take this Phoenix in a 1v1 up against big man Tings. Jake, best of luck, 1 versus 3.
Barracuda will back away, so now it's just Jake to play the defense against Netroid and the other 2 frontliners of the Camelot Kings, and he won't be as fortunate or as successful as Barra on that push. It'll be a Phoenix for the Camelot Kings, the right side one, but Barra has done some damage on this left lane, making sure to take both those towers, and even Phoenix sitting at pretty critical health.
A defensive rotation from the Bolts, just trying to keep that Phoenix alive, and from there it was the staggered backs of the Bolts that gets punished by the Kings. It's Haddix alone at first, gets dominated. Jake tries to go in to stop some backs. Ven gets dominated. Now Gold Fury burning down quick.
Jake finds a double taunt in the backline. Only Fury low, and the Kings will take it out. Barracuda gets hit by the ultimate from Genetics, and Jake will dash away, but it's Haddix dashing in with his leap. Gets pulled back by Genetics, but he'll be chopped right down. Haddix credited for 1, and Jake will find another. Netroid down, and now it's only Variety left to run for the Camelot Kings. The Bolts continue pushing up this left side, and with that weakened Phoenix, it may be an opportunity for the Bolts to grab something.
50 seconds on Netroid, 30 on Genetics. It's up to big man Tings, Twig, and Variety is not allowed to go back to base. What you got is all you're going to have for this defense.
Haddix spots Captain Twig, a teleport in with the Sacred Monkey. Barracuda now in danger. Variety putting a lot of pressure on him, but it's the Tycho drums from Venenu.
One more.
The last shot to take him, but Variety's able to juke it out. Lives on less than 50 health, and now it's Big Man versus Lasbra, and that fight's going all Lasbra.
Lazarus may have got the kill, but trades out his own life. Captain Twig able to pull 1 back in their favor, so it's a 1-for-1 Phoenix trade at the end of the day. Don't worry too much about those minions, all right?
Yeah,
they're getting cleared out. Haddix is there and ready for the defense. While though the Camelot Kings not nearly as lucky. This long, slow, prolonged battle around the Fire Giant has allowed this Fire Minion Wave to push up incredibly far, and do my eyes deceive me, Lasbra wants the 1v1.
Lasbra goes in, Captain Twig in the 1v1,
See ya.
but that bubble holds him off just long enough. Lasbra gets the solo kill against Twig, and now the Bolts can start looking towards this Fire Giant. It's a 4v4 on the right-hand side, and Lasbra will go back to base after his victory.
Only 1 more Fire Minion Wave for the Olympus Bolts to contend with, and instead, Lasbra knows exactly what is needed, and that was all beads maintained, Blink available as well. Ultimate even still held on to. This play from Lasbra Lazar, man, it might have got some repercussions for the Camelot Kings.
Olympus Bolts, because they have the advantage on the right side, they'll go to the fire and maybe even pick up Genetics. They'll get the beads from the tree and a Powell out to try and pull him back in. Lasbra's got him, and Lasbra will take him down. The basic after is enough, and the Bolts take the Fire Giant. The left side Phoenix about to respawn, so there is still some hope for the Kings on net defense. They've still got a few towers that the Bolts might want to try and chew through before walking to that throne room.
Here's the thing about Barracuda. He's got the Fire Giant this time around, so these towers going to be a little bit easier to strip away. Tier 2 on right. That's a foregone conclusion already burning down. And Twig, that's speed, bud.
Twig, you may not have learned your lesson too well last time. Lazar does it to him once again, and that's another pick for the jungler. Lasbra grabs him, and now it's Genetics down for 15, Captain Twig down for 50, and the Phoenix under fire by the Bolts. A blink in from Haddix with the Ren just to zone the Camelot Kings away, but he'll leap right in with the Sentinel of Zeus. Now Netroid's the one in danger. He'll have to run all the way back to the base.
Variety able to keep a couple of members of the Bolts at bay here, but not enough to keep them off of that Phoenix. Still 2 towers in mid for the Bolts to work through, but plenty of time to work with. 30 seconds left on Captain Twig's respawn, and the Olympus Bolts are incredibly healthy. Not a lot of sustain inside of their composition, but Fire Giant able to shore them up and keep those HP bars topped off.
They'll make their way towards the left side. That Phoenix is weakened. It could just be a couple that are needed to take it down, but instead they'll rotate everybody but Lasbra. And now that Lasbra's caught in a 3v1, that's an easy short for them to grab that left side Phoenix, and Genetics caught out by himself. Lasbra on the Powell out, delaying for as long as he can.
No shot.
But he delays for not long enough. Variety able to grab him on the tail end, but now it's Jake who picks up Variety, and a quick retreat from the Bolts. They get the left Phoenix, the Fear No Evil, not back up yet for Captain Twig, but now he's got it back in, and he gets a big turnaround. Barrett down, Venenu down, and now Haddix is the one in danger. A leap in will slow him down, and Captain Twig, with the help of a tower shot, picks up the triple kill, taking down Haddix, and only one left for the Bolts.
Were at least able to strip away 2 Phoenixes from the Camelot Kings. A lot of time here for the Kings to play with, though. Maybe able to get 1 Phoenix back, but I don't think they can look for the end. Not with Jake standing right in front of them.
Less than 20 seconds for Lasbra. Jake is going to try and delay the frontliners because everybody else from the Kings are so far back. Netroid hasn't even got to the tower until just now, so they'll get at least tier 2 tower, but no further push towards the Phoenix. Captain Twig's able to hold off the left side fire minions. Now we'll push away the right side. Delay the game just a little bit longer and even this up, but we get a nice first-person perspective from Captain Twig as he picks up that double kill right off a phenomenal defense by the Kings.
Sometimes things just line up real well for a Hunbot's triple ultimate into a triple kill for Captain Twig, and then immediately into the Primal Fury afterward. But again, both side lane Phoenixes down for the Camelot Kings. These are long shot odds to continue these defenses.
No, not again.
We've been here before.
Not again. Lasbra goes in. He's able to hold on for a while, but this time it's Twig actually taking him down, but it will be a trade out. The bleed was enough to take down Captain Twig right after, and now it's going to be the 4v4 defense for the Kings.
That was huge for Captain Twig. If he isn't at least able to trade out Lasbra, that could have spelled the end of this one for the Camelot Kings, but instead it is now a 4 versus 4 with only 1 Phoenix still standing. But Captain Twig's ultimate might be one of the most valuable cooldowns on the side of the Camelot Kings. Lasbra may have done enough.
Jake dives in, looking for big man Tings. He'll grab him and get the beads out of the mid laner. A flicker over the wall gets him out of danger, but the rest of his team is the one who needs some help. Genetics at half health, and the snipes from Netroid against Bear will do some damage, but now it's Variety in danger. Jake able to pick up big man in the back line. Variety falling low, and Hags bullying everybody. He will surge forward with the rest of the team and force them under the mid lane. Phoenix. Jake dives in, gets the double taunt, but immediately dashes right back out.
Raiju not popped on a Genetics, so he's going to keep the majority of his HP bar. Variety, though, exposes himself in the jungle.
Finds Barracuda, and Barracuda puts him right down. Now it's 2 gone for the Camelot Kings. Captain Twig back up, and Fear No Evil will be available in just a moment. Now
up against Captain Twig, it seems like still very willing to go for it, hunting inside the jungle for the monkey.
Well, we're going for a part number 4. This time Lasbra uses the ultimate to get away, and he'll get his 3rd win in that 1v1 column and put Captain Twig down for another 55 seconds. Fire Giant started up by the Bolts, and there will be no contest from the Camelot Kings. They're just going to have to let this one go. Down to half health and burning even faster. Bear and Ben have more than enough DPS to take this neutral objective off the map, and with their 3rd Fire Giant under their belts, the Olympus Bolts can try and look to push out the last 2 Phoenixes that have just respawned and then make their way towards the mid.
Now the Olympus Bolts working on the right-hand side. No defense from the Camelot Kings, so this one's going to fall down just to the efforts of the 408 here. Left side, Phoenix is pushed out as far as the minions are concerned, but that Phoenix is incredibly weak. An enhanced fire giant means you're not worried about the minions anyway.
Jake is getting slow poked by big man Tings, but Haddix is at the front line for the Bolts. Lasbra waiting on the left side, looking for a chance to dive his way in. Captain Twig's back up, ultimate back online for this Hoon bots, and that could be all that they need for this base defense.
Magi's Blessing is available to Lasbra, so if he is able to spot Captain Twig out isolated, might be willing to take that 1v1 yet again, as Awesome Jake pulls the attention of Variety towards this right-hand side.
Lasbra goes in, Pow Lao is going to do some damage to Captain Twig. The beads will make sure he doesn't get pulled, but the damage is done, the Phoenix is gone, and the beads are burned from the jungler. And just about every single one.
I don't know, Twig's got to play pretty cautiously here, right? He might have Lasbra waiting around the corner to take his lunch money, as he has been for the last 34 minutes. And now finally the Bolts starting to work their way forward.
Jake blinks in the back, finds Captain Twig with the ultimate and pushes him away from the team. Variety down to half health. Nanu even lower. The ultimate from Netroid shredding through him, but Variety has to go back to base. The mid Phoenix exposed. Fear no evil from Captain Twig finds
massive.
And maybe a second after, Netroid picks him up, and it's Jake and Haddix now on the run. Haddix at half health. Captain Twig with a big ultimate pushes it forward, but look at the minions collapsing in.
Meanwhile, the Camelot Kings trying their best to chase out the Olympus Bolts, won't allow these backs to come through. Lasbra thought for a second maybe he can go for an end attempt on his own, but instead is now shifting his attention to rejoin his team.
Captain Twig is here with 3 other members of the Kings. It's a Variety on the soul-based defense, and he'll be enough to at least hold the minions out for the time being. Jake is trying to be the solo effort of really just being the distraction here up against the Kings.
It's dangerous.
But seems like they may have spotted out Lasbra and Haddix. They 3 versus 4 collapse towards the mid lane. Phoenix, maybe a pincer maneuver. Jake able to taunt Captain Twig away. Mid Phoenix under fire. Haddix pulled back in. Haddix shredded down to half, but so is Netroid falling low, and the poison is enough. Plus the Pow Lao. Jake credited with the kill. Captain Twig goes down. It's a double kill for Jake. Big man
poison keeps spreading.
Wants to try and get one. He'll at least turn it around with the poison spreading. Now big man Tings is able to fire it right back and put down Haddix. It's a 2-for-2 trade at the mid Phoenix.
But time has been purchased, and Ven is going to be coming in pretty soon here. Genetics very slow, but a tree might get caught out. If Raiju is applied, the slow should be enough. Barracuda, well, he's got one of his own.
Jake's going to cut off the path, and big man is diverted right back to
Almost.
Puts him down. The burn, not enough. And with Genetics gone, it's only Variety on the defense. 30 seconds on Twig. 30 seconds on Netroid, but this Titan is looking worse for wear.
Variety has been fighting for his life against these minion waves for like the last 40 seconds, while the rest of his team attempt to return an end to the Olympus Bolts. Variety has been left on cleanup duty, and now is the only one standing between the Bolts and a 2-0 victory.
Barracuda will scoot right past him, and to the Titan they'll go. He gets picked up. The Fire Minions are doing the deed, and it will be the Olympus Bolts coming out with the 2-0 victory to shut down the Kings and send them packing here in week 3.
Hodgepodge of fights. I mean, it's going back and forth every other way. If you blink one fight, all of a sudden the Bolts are in control. Next fight, Kings are in control. Next fight, Bolts are in control. But a lot of it came down to Lasbra. We put a lot of weight on his shoulders today. KDA 1.56 maybe doesn't scream out to you. 28,000 damage isn't anything to scoff at, though, but it's these 1v1s so consistently going his way. You had highlighted it on the desk before the game. It just made it so much easier for the Bolts.
Yeah, look, I mean, this game was I don't even know how to describe it, man. It was ugly for a lot of this game. There was just so much fighting and positioning mistakes and all this kind of stuff, but it allowed for some really cool individual plays. I mean, obviously Lasbra kept finding Twig at the exact moment. I mean, we saw in that first highlight that Twig had just used his jump and his 2 in order to clear Fire Wave, and it was just had some really good instincts to be able to hunt him down there. I thought Big Man played really well in this game. This last play, it doesn't work out for him, but this play to go in onto Venenu, he nearly kills him, and that could have easily changed the outcome of that game.
Takes a few times. They surge against those Phoenixes and towers quite often, And it's 10, 8, and 5. 15 affected kills, a few of them being solo kills. One of the deaths being a trade out with Captain Twig. But Lasber does a lot in that game. I actually have to give credit because the last play, not only does Vin help get those kills, despite Tings trying his best to stop it, but Lasber gets rid of Netroid right before that, and that was the moment where I think I looked up and I was like, okay, this should be done now. Like, Tings off in studio up against the Leviathans. Not an easy match. Even though this was a 2-0, wasn't an easy match, goes into another hard one with the undefeated Leviathans standing in their way. Later tomorrow, we'll have the Dragons versus the Scarabs, also in studio. And of course, we'll get to see a couple of these teams, the Kings a little bit later on versus the Warriors, the Scarabs again against the Valkyries on Sunday. Making sure that we round things off with some very interesting matchups, especially with the way the Warriors have been playing.
Yeah.
We can take a peek at the standings and see how things are going to shift for these sets. 3-1 now ties the Titans and the Bolts. The Kings at 2-2 and potentially able to push themselves to 3-2 later this week. Warriors may be able to go to 2-2 and take the Kings down to 2-3 and cause some crazy changes so far that we have seen just in these standings now.